Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
Good evening, folks. How are we all doing?
Yeah, not too bad, okay. Hello, Nui. Not seen you for a little while.
Hello, Mr. Lester. I feel like I talk to you more than my wife at the moment.
Yeah, me too. I speak to your wife more than you as well. So
we have an
that's
unusual.
one all with the wife jokes, I think now, isn't it? Yeah.
We have an unusual setup tonight, gentlemen, which I'm pleased with. To be honest, I think it shows how committed we are as a fan base. To be honest, really, to get such a wide group in and new people in. So yeah, thank you for joining me tonight, Nui and Ryan. Really appreciate you having you on board and your thoughts. Obviously, we have had an interesting evening as a fan base. There's been, some of you may or may not be aware, there's been a little interview that's happened on Radio WM tonight with our favourite friend, shall we say, Mr. Shi. And what we want to do tonight is really reflect on that. I think we need to look at it. I've done quite a bit of analysis on it. I'm sure you all have, whether that's through the power of AI in my case or through handwritten notes or whatever. And I really want to get reflecting. There's a lot of people in the chat already. There's a lot of comments. Keep them coming in. I'm going to try and bring as many of those in as we go. What I've tried to do is distill the conversation into some key themes, and then what I'll do, Ryan and Nui, is get your thoughts on those and your assessments, and then open it out a bit further if there are any other themes that you saw or wanted to cover. So the first area that we're going to start with is around the finances, and obviously the statement was we're financially safe even if we're relegated. And Jeff Shi repeatedly stressed that as a club we're financially healthy. PSR is not an issue. We're likely to have 2 consecutive years of profitable. Relegation planning is already built in. And one of the other things he did call out was no expectation of staff redundancies or staff cuts as a result of relegation. Love to get your thoughts on that from the first theme in terms of the finances. Him stating it's healthy, seems to have a plan if we do get relegated. And one I like to hear that the ordinary person is not going to be impacted by this. Nui, do you want to go first? Give me a thought on that, on the finances.
Yeah, I mean, just to start with, I think the same as every Wolves fan out there right now, still picking my jaw up off the floor from the whole thing, and I'm sure we'll go through all of it in a little bit more detail. But I mean, to start with, I guess one of the minor positives from it is obviously knowing that we are kind of stable financially. I guess, if you look at other clubs and how that's kind of been portrayed and how that's gone with other clubs at the moment, that's a minor positive to kind of get it. So it's good to know that we're stable financially, and that, I mean, it says it itself. Like the fact that we're profitable means that we're not necessarily spending in the right ways, if you like. But one of the other bits that I picked up from the initial start of this conversation was that the chemistry and communication behind the scenes is the best that it's been in 10 years.
Yes.
Jeff. So I know that obviously it was within the finance kind of conversation. Yeah. I just thought that was like really, really interesting to hear. I'm not sure that he even believes himself. Can
I just jump in that bit?
Yeah,
I mean, for me, behind the scenes, when Laurie was there, for me, when Laurie went, that was when a big sort of, well, not a big, but that's when the disconnect started. That's when we had a class communicator, someone that genuinely cared. He understood the fans, the town centre, the club. He understood everything. That team that he had then, and then along with Nuno and the coaches, all then, that for me, I mean, it must be some team he has behind the scenes now if he thinks he's better than them. I'm not being disrespectful to anyone there now. I hope they come good and prove us all wrong. But as Nui said, I cannot believe for a second he genuinely believes that. That feels to me that's just something to say that because they'll want to hear it. Nui, I can't believe that's real.
No, again, I'm probably going to say this an awful lot throughout this kind of stream. Just utter shock. I mean, like, I came in and ate my dinner with my wife after it, and she was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I just can't believe some of the things that I've just heard, and that he thought that this would be a positive." I mean, fair play to Mike Taylor for asking some, really, really quality key questions that he hasn't necessarily been asked in a long time. We've not had an independent kind of interview with Jeff that's not been from the club in a long time. So fair play for doing it. But he's a PR disaster. The bloke is a PR disaster.
Yeah. It's hard to understand to think anyone said this is a good idea. Now, some would argue that fans have asked for it. We want him to come and stand forward. Yeah, and there's a fair point to that. But if I was an advisor of Jeff and I was working for Wolverhampton Wanderers, I'd have probably said, you know what, Jeff, I don't think this is a good idea. Yes, the fans are calling for it. I just think this is going to make things worse. Look at the fan base. Look at social media. This has just put fuel on the fire.
And just sorry, Greg, just really quickly to go back to his comment, and the quote was that the chemistry and communication behind the scenes is the best that it's been in 10 years.
Correct.
That's not what I'm hearing, mate. I know not a lot of people that work at the club, and I'm not going to name any names. We've all got different contacts here and there. Jeff, you're lying to the fan base.
But again, if he's saying this, the problem is it's the same kind of line that we hear trotted out all the time. When they brought Tete in the summer, oh, we've learned our lesson. We've got a new structure. We've got the way to move forward. We're now in December, and we're in another new structure with a new set of people, and it's the new way forward. Yeah. Right? There's only so many times you can keep going back to that well to say, I've learned my lesson. It's now right. Before people just don't believe you, right? They don't accept what you're saying anymore. And again, it's big lines. It's perfect chemistry. We always listen to each other. We may not always agree, but we're such a great group, and everything's moving. And you're like, but this is the worst league performance in years. We're on 2 points from 15. We've got structural issues with the way the club is run, the stadium, the experience, the community. How can you say that this is the best leadership and the best setup? You've got nothing to prove that. You might be because you're nice with each other, but where's the evidence to support your statement?
The one thing that I thought was staggering as well, and I may be wrong, but the talk when Matt Jackson spoke of an open door policy and things, I think it was suggested that and people could be challenged. I might be wrong, but I'm not sure I believe that. Is Jeff got people in there challenging him day after day? They may do. I don't know on what level he's challenged or not. But that suggestion of an open door policy where we can lay things out, I don't believe it. I'm sorry, I don't believe that at all.
Do you know what? Maybe it is true, but anyone that doesn't necessarily agree with him, based on some of the recent outgoings of the club that still haven't been explained or kind of spoken about, maybe it's if you're not agreeing with him, then there's the door.
Well, I mean, again, I'm not trying to do a crossover to the rules report, but I said on my podcast last night, look at the turnover of staff. I mean, this is something I talked about that I want to talk about in more depth. Look at the numbers, not just the managers, the director of football, the senior figures. I mean, I'm not a football finance expert or sort of a staffing expert, but to me, it seems like a huge amount of turnover in staff every year from all departments. And for me, in any normal business, that doesn't seem to make sense. But like I said, I'm not an expert in that field, but for me, that just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, 100%. And like you say, it's not just the senior level. I know, and we know people, staff that are just, not in normal roles on exec level, and they're leaving in droves.
Yeah, the one thing as well, though, I mean, on that subject, you started off first, Greg, regarding the ridiculous. Now, to actually come out and say that now, you put yourself under a lot of pressure to make sure that doesn't happen. You can't say something like that willy-nilly. That's not a joke or funny or something to appease fans. No. If you're telling people their jobs are safe, you cannot go back on that now. You cannot. I know there's part-time staff, full-time staff, contractors. Absolutely. And not go on back. This is people's livelihoods. We're talking about difficult times. If you are committing to that on a massive interview on BBC sort of online and radio, you're committing to that. You have to commit to that now.
100%.
I just think, I mean, you know what? It might turn out to be true. Again, is that going to be true in 6 months' time when, let's say, we can't sell some of these players that are on 60, 70 grand a week and their wages are hammering us in the Championship? Let's see how true it is then. But again, I hope it's true, but do I believe it? I'll judge when it happens.
Yeah. So the next kind of thing that I kind of pulled out and was looking at was very much around Jeff's kind of this, and a part of it's a distraction, I know, but this kind of long-term project, the phrase 10 years was something that was rolled out time and time and time again. You know, he constantly frames Wolves as this 10-year and then plus 10-year project, which obviously we were all delighted to hear. So he was talking about this initial 10 years and the next 10 years. And obviously you talked about the club. And again, a lot of it was like where the club was in 2016 versus where they are now. And then looking at the evolution based on decades, not just an individual season. He also then started to talk about the ceiling, and that obviously manifested itself in a number of different ways. But he was obviously saying that success should be measured by becoming a long-term Premier League club, even if there are relegations in between. That was his kind of thing. He's like, look at it. Now, I don't think that's realistic. I think that might be okay if you were running maybe a business, but certainly not a football club, and certainly not where such a results-orientated business. I don't think it works like that. In fact, I don't think it works like that in business, let's be honest. If you tanked a business and half the revenue disappeared, you certainly wouldn't be in role for much time unless you own the business, which he doesn't. So what was your thoughts on that? I'll go with you, Nui, first, and then Ryan, I'll jump straight over to you.
So, like, honestly, I got cramp in my hand from all the notes that I was writing, all the quotes. I wish I knew.
There's a joke there, isn't there?
Yeah, I know. I knew you were thinking that. I had to be careful with what I was saying. But one of the quotes that I got from that is that he's not happy. You know, that we should be that they should be judged on the last 10 years, and to look at the long game, like you said, Greg. But one of the interesting points that I picked out in that was that he's got empathy for some of the fans, and I found that like really, really interesting. The fact that he said some of the fans. Does he disregard the other fans? Like, I don't understand his point there. I think there's a bit of explaining that needs doing around that, and I don't necessarily think that he thinks about his answer sometimes. I can guarantee that, you know, the press officer and other people at the club were holding their head in their hands as soon as they heard that, because it was picked up by a lot of people. So let's remember that one.
Yeah. Ryan, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm just going on to Nui, some fans bit as well. I mean, I messaged, I think one of the groups that were in Nui, I messaged that as well, and that's not acceptable. And do you know what? It might have been a little slip of the truth, because obviously certain sections of the fan base, couldn't think who, have probably annoyed him at the moment, and rightfully so. I want you to be annoyed because you're doing a terrible job of running our football club. But the biggest thing for me, Greg, of talking about the future and planning was the real lack of urgency. Now, I know Jeff looked like he was trying to be calm and composed, not trying to get rattled. But when there isn't any urgency or real passion, I know you're running a Premier League football club, but you did not seem bothered if we were getting relegated, promoted, about anything. There was no emotion. And you know what? I want a savvy businessman. Let's be really clear. I don't think Jeffy's a savvy businessman, but no urgency, no concerned, carry on as normal, whatever division we're in, it's not a problem. I think there is a real lack of understanding about football, the football club, the football fans, and what it means to be in the Premier League. And like the three of us, I'm sure we spent most of our years watching Wolves in the Championship, failing year after year in the playoffs. He just doesn't understand how hard it is to get at that division.
Yeah, and he seemed to be completely blasé about the impact that the Championship would have. I think he referenced about China, that it's still be a potent brand. I think he was talking more esports at that point, if I'm honest, rather than football. But I think, again, it kind of was. It was saying like the fans he meets face to face are supportive. Well, I don't think he meets many fans face to face, if I'm honest. And then he obviously started to talk about social media being distorted. And listen, there are extremes in social media, but having looked on X tonight before I came on here, there was a very clear rhetoric and a very clear theme. It didn't really move because no one was saying it was a great interview. And obviously, there's visible protests and hostility inside the stadium. You know. There's thousands of people calling him out, whether he likes that or not. That's the reality, and those are the people he needs to speak to. He won't, but those are the people he needs to speak to understand. Yeah,
I'm going. Sorry, Neil. I mean, I don't know who he's been speaking to, but when he says people are happy, I just can't see that. I've looked again. My phone, as I'm sure you guys have, been absolutely hammered for the last few hours, and you're trying to keep up with everything that's going on. I haven't seen a single person going, oh, that wasn't too bad. Good old Jeff. Not a single person. Now, maybe that's the people I associate with, more than likely so. But I don't know a single person that's like, oh, go on, Jeff, that was good. Good for you. Not a single person. Opposing fans and managers and club associates from elsewhere will laugh at that. And if we don't laugh now, we'll cry. I just think it's a terrible, terrible effort.
just to go on the social media being distorted. I mean, let's be honest, social media can be absolutely brutal at times, and there are a lot of faceless accounts on social media that will say, some really, really bad things. However, I think coming from the fan groups and everyone that's kind of started originally the letters, and then obviously the 15-minute boycott, I would like to think that we're all fair and reasonable, and generally constructive with our criticism. We've had to step it up, obviously, recently, in terms of we're not necessarily getting what we want to kind of hear back, and perhaps this is his way of kind of going, look, let's be open about it, and let's be, let's talk to WM about it. But I think until he actually, sits down in a room with the fans that are being, that are raising these concerns and that have genuine reasons for their anger, for their dismay, for their upset. I think until he listens to those fans, I don't know who he's talking to, if that's the case. He said he met somebody in the car park at, heading up to WM. Didn't necessarily say everything that he said. I don't know if that distortion's coming from me. Can everyone hear that?
Is it your mic?
I think it might be my end, yeah.
Is that?
No, there we go.
Right now.
So yeah, I think it's interesting, but until he does that, until he openly start, he can't just continue talking to the fan advisory board. I don't know if anybody looked at the meeting notes. They weren't meeting minutes, the meeting notes from the fan advisory board a couple of days ago. I can imagine that they were heavily redacted notes. It doesn't seem, from what I'm told anyway, the meeting was fairly lengthy. Yeah.
Sorry, Greg, can I just say on top of that what Nui said about the meeting notes? Again, this is something we've raised before. I think anything like that needs full transparency. If you've got certain sort of sections that are meeting the club, whether it's the trust, whether it's whoever, I think any kind of minutes need to be, there could be long-winded and days worth of reading, but I think the whole transparent truth needs to be there for everybody to see. Granted, you know what, that might be difficult to do, but yeah, that might be hard, but I think anything like that needs to be, like you said, there's 5 or 6 sections put together now. Now, granted, I know it wants to be compact and there's a lot of reading, but I genuinely think there should be an option for everyone to see everything, because what are you hiding? You're talking about transparency. Well, let's see everything now.
Yeah, I mean, if we could just, sorry, Greg, I know you want
to keep going.
But if you, for those that have kind of, been following Wolves for a while, and that'll be the majority of people on here, if anyone remembers the old fans parliament, everything was minuted in that. It was all clear. They got an independent guy to come in and kind of do the minutes, and it was all really transparent. There was, anything that was discussed was put in those minutes. We don't get that anymore. And I'm not saying that we need to go back to the parliament, because there were good and bad things about that. But actually, with the fan advisory board, surely that's similar to where we're going. But also, I'd look to, they need to change something with the fan advisory board. It's not a great representation, in my opinion, of the Wolves fan base. And that's not me pushing for myself to go on there. I think whoever goes on there should be elected by the fan base and should be, picked by the fan base to do whatever. But I just don't think that the representation of that right now is the best. But anyway, I'm going off track.
No, it's all good. No, at least
first vote here for Nui.
This is what we need, though, and this is where we've got to, as a fan base, keep talking, keep being clear, and keep raising these things. Because obviously, what we're seeing today is that necessarily isn't landing, or it is landing but not understood, and we've got to keep going. One of the things I also wanted to look at was they talked quite a bit about recruitment, but also Rob Edwards as well. One of the big ones that I heard from Jeff is he explicitly says Rob Edwards is the manager for at least 3 years. And then he kind of put a 95% certainty wrap around that. Obviously said that results matter, but then he started to talk about the working culture matters more, and that they value chemistry and the shared principles and all this. Again, going back to this, well, if the environment's great, it doesn't really matter about the results. Jackson obviously then added to that by saying Rob was chosen for championship rebuild capability as well. He talked about, obviously, the Luton experience and what he was doing at Middlesbrough. and the long-term development. And he was confident that the performances will improve later, even if the early results are awful. Love to get both your thoughts on that. So they're really being quite strong in pinning the mass, which is interesting considering our current average tenure of a manager is nowhere near 3 years. It's more close to 6 months, but would love to get both of your thoughts on that, really.
I mean, if I could open up saying, well, if Rob Edwards was brought in for the Championship, why was they trying to bring Gary O'Neill in first? Then what was his experience in the Championship? But anyway, as for Rob Edwards at the start of that question, what I would say is there was like a joint amount of laughter at the start of that question, and that was confusing. I mean, it's been pretty bad, and Rob's had the rough end of the stick. I don't think Rob genuinely knew how bad this squad was. I don't think it would matter who's in charge of Wolverhampton Wanderers at the moment. I think that squad has gone downhill so badly. They have no idea. There's no way of keeping them up. However, will Rob be there in 3.5 years? I'm not sure that he will. And Jeff's 95% is ridiculously ambitious. We're averaging about a manager a year at the moment. So, yeah, I don't believe him. I don't believe he believes what he's saying. I just think he's trying to appease the fans by talking about longevity and stability, and I don't believe him.
I just think it adds an unnecessary pressure and an unnecessary amount of noise for something that doesn't need to be discussed, right? Because at the end of the day, and again, to be fair to Mike, he made this point on the interview. Well, what happens if we're still in single digits come April? Are you still going to be in that position? Are you still going to make that statement? Are you still going to back him? And they kind of started to back down a little bit at that point. Started to kind of see where the questioning was going. But
one of the other things as well. Another quote that I wrote down, and we actually put this on our socials, and it's kind of blown up. Relegation or staying up are just a technical term that people like to emphasise, but inside the club, it's not that serious.
Yeah.
I'm baffled. Anyway,
could you say a statement that shows more that I don't understand football, Wolverhampton Wanderers, this club, or this people more than that? It's quite incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 100%. Next area that I wanted to just look on was obviously they talked about the recruitment and squad mismanagement. There was kind of an admission that they replaced. I think Jeff talked about replacing too many players too quick. The squad had lost experience. Matt had talked about. I'm not sure if that's my mic. No, it's not. We'll keep going. Hopefully, people can hear me. There was talk about that the logic for the recruitment was sound, was there. So the recruitment was solid recruitment, but it failed. And then Jeff started to talk about the pace of change and the tempo, I think was the phrase he used quite a lot, had kind of caught them out. And there was some fine margins. There was a group of 8 people, and there was fine margins, and we'd got it through. I mean, for me, that the replacing too many players too fast kind of irked me quite a lot, to be honest. Since as a board, as a club, we already knew that Semedo and Ryan and Cunha were going in January, right? We all knew that. So they had 6 months to prepare for that. And let's be honest, they also got the money for Cunha and Aït-Nouri. They got it up front early in the transfer window. So it wasn't a cash issue because we'd sold those players early. So the fact that we waited until the very last minute to start bringing in Tolo and Wolfe and all the others, for me, that was a big problem. So yeah, thoughts on that? Thoughts on the recruitment? I mean, we all know how it's panned out, but
what I find staggering, Greg, is just the previous manager talked about. Yeah, we need players, one-on-one specialists, people with pace, people who can go with the ball. We haven't even never mind signed poor footballers. We haven't even signed the right profile of footballers. There's none of those guys that can go beat anyone in a one-on-one situation. There's no one that can drop a shoulder and curl one in or put a cross in. There's no one that can travel with the ball. We've signed completely the wrong profile of players. I mean, Tolu, we've signed some. We play with one centre forward. We have them for a while, and now we're talking about we've signed. Use the rest of the money to sign him. It just stunk of absolutely no planning, no idea. Never mind 4th, 5th, or 6th choice. It's so bad a window. I think in history, it's easily pound for pound Wolves' worst window, no doubt about it. And in terms of Premier League windows, one of the worst ever. So sorry to just keep going on, but I just don't understand how it could be that bad.
I'm not sure. There is a quote that I wrote down here, but I'm not sure that this was, maybe the context of this wasn't taken properly. But In relation to academy players coming through, you mentioned that obviously we'd lost 4 or 5 to bigger clubs over the summer, and obviously that was frustrating. I mean, there's reasons why they would have gone, let's be honest. But also the local area is tough to recruit in. That was one of the things that I picked up on from Matt Jackson. Like I don't understand that the thought behind saying something like that either. Again, I'm going to have to read back to make sure that that quote is absolutely correct, and it's obviously one of the minor concerns. But I raised this on Ryan's Wolves space that we did on whatever night it was. I'm so lost with all of the
Tuesday.
It was Tuesday night. I mentioned that, you know, when's the last time that we had an academy player of talent come through? And I think Gibbs White's probably the last, real player of quality that came through. And I'm not saying that, you know, the 2 players like Mane, although he hasn't actually come through the academy, has he, Mane?
He came in quite late from.
I don't think he's been there from his early teens. I think he's only been there a little while. But just following on what you're saying there, it's hard to recruit in the local area.
Yeah.
So Wolverhampton's a 1 club city. You're surrounding, like your neighbouring Shropshire, a massive area. You know what I mean? There's the rest of the West Midlands. Now, obviously there's Villa, there's Blues, there's West Brom, but there's a lot of talented young footballers. To say it's hard to recruit, and they're like, well, where are we recruiting then? I just think it's. I mean, I might be. Like I said, I'm not a football talent or a football scout. I just think that's another crazy thing to say. It just sounds like an excuse to me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah, I think there's. I mean, you're talking the Greater Birmingham area. You're talking like 1.5 million people. Okay, not all of those play football. I acknowledge that, but then, like you've just said, Ryan, you've got the whole of Shropshire. You've got up into Staffordshire, Stoke area, and even pushing out towards East Midlands. Right, there's a big enough net to bring people in, and Premier League scouts, and with all the video stuff these days and all of that, there is plenty of opportunity to analyse and look at players. So yeah, I'm not buying that. I'm sorry, that's just not for me. Talking about that as well and the academy, you also did talk about the women's team, which I do want to call out, because I did think that was one area that I did feel slightly happier about in terms of obviously supporting the women's team. They will be backed if they're promoted, and there was I think it was the letter of intent. I think it was.
Yeah.
They meant. So again, thoughts on that? I mean, that is at least one positive thing that we could take out of this. And there was a move towards full time as well, I think, in there.
Yeah, and I think it's like the women's team and Wolves women are one huge positive that that's come out of the club kind of recently and everything that they're doing. I mean, I don't necessarily follow the women's side too much, but it's obviously good to see. It was criminal what happened last year, and not being able to kind of push forward with what they wanted to do. But I did think that was interesting, and obviously wanting to kind of back them. I did find it quite funny when they mentioned that they went to the Christmas party last night, but they weren't part of the Secret Santa.
Yeah, I mean, what happened to the Wolves women team last year was nothing short of scandalous. Imagine if they'd have got promoted. That would have been. Imagine all your hard work. By the way, we didn't apply for the license, so you're not going to get promoted. So for me, it's really, really, really poor. It told us what Jeff really thought of the women's team. He seems to have rectified that now. So you have to. I'm not going to praise, because it's what you should have done in the first place. So you've done the right thing. You've not done well. You've done the right thing. So I'm pleased. The women's team are flying the flag at the moment. They're doing fantastically well, and good luck to them. And I think they might be on BT Sport on Saturday night. We can watch as well, I think, maybe as well. So yeah, good luck to them. And that is a little bit of good news. But if that's your good news, you can pretty much tell how bad an hour it was with Jeff Shi.
Yeah, well,
I think it's Channel 4 actually, Ryan. But
apologies
okay.
To any subscribers of BT Sport.
but that's like the reality. You know what I mean? That we've got that one piece, and that's kind of been done in spite of Jeff. Let's be honest. It's kind of been, they've done that on their own, off their own development. And as you say, nearly got kneecapped by the club last year. So, I think that was a good thing. Obviously, the other piece that was raised was around Molineux and the redevelopment, I think was the word there. That was quite interesting. You talked about a partner offer. I'm not quite sure that is that someone looking to help fund that? Is that someone who's just waiting for some construction companies to give him a bid? Wasn't quite sure what he meant by that, by a partner offer.
I mean, it sounds like he's after some help. It doesn't sound like Fosun don't want to pay for it, and he doesn't want Wolves to pay for it. So who's going to pay for it? Well,
yeah. So he did start to then talk about the council support and a broader city involvement and a development of the area, which kind of makes, like you say, I think that means that they're not going to rebuild the ground on their own. So they're going to be looking for some kind of leverage or assistance to move that along. I'm healthily, as you can imagine, sceptical that I don't think anything meaningful is going to be done in the short term or even the medium term.
What I would say about the ground development and anything like that, I know there's certain things, like in terms of being self-sustainable with the transfers, I don't mind that. But if you've taken over as a custodian of the football club, it is your responsibility to keep the upkeep of the ground, the training facilities up to required standards. As a custodian, that is your responsibility. So searching elsewhere for someone else to pay for it when you're in charge, well, if you can't afford it or you can't pay for it, get someone else to do it and leave. Don't stop making excuses. You sold us this beautiful bowl that was before that was going to be fantastic, one tier, sort of two tiers all the way around, one tier South Bank. Yeah, well, where's that gone? Why have you changed your mind on that? You're responsible for keeping our home to the best condition, and you're not doing it. Never mind refurbing it. There's a stand that's like older than me, and that says quite a lot. It's nowhere near good enough. It's just excuses. I don't believe it. Again, there's these things that are talked about, said within good intentions. Is it to buy some time? I don't believe it. Actions speak louder than words. If you start doing it, I'll believe it. But until then, I don't believe it, and it is your responsibility.
Yeah, and looking at transfers as well, let's be honest, when was the last time we had a decent transfer window, hand on heart, gents? When was the last time you can turn around and go, actually, we've got a good crop of players there?
I'd say the window when we signed Craig Dawson, that didn't turn out so bad. Was it Mario, Dawson, Cunha? Was that the window?
Yeah.
Sarabia, maybe. That wasn't a bad window for me. Well, it was a window that kept Wolves up, so that's got to be a good window. But probably the best window was when we got promoted and Matinho, Rui Patricio. That was the window of windows, wasn't it, really, with Jimenez coming in as well?
Yeah, I think this is it. And that's the reality. And for me, you can just see now, I think they talked about where they were getting players from now. They talked about a wider net, but looking for in more kind of uncompetitive areas. But then there's a reason why those areas are uncompetitive, because the general standard's lower. You know, if you're buying players out of Serie A, La Liga, generally they're going to be better than if you're getting them out of the Belgian league or do you know what I mean, or the Croatian league. And that's no disrespect to those clubs. That's just the reality. Those clubs will be playing in Champions Leagues and European competitions, and these are in domestic leagues. So go ahead, carry on.
Yes, sorry. I mean, once I get fired, I can't stop.
No, it's fine. It's all good. That's what we're here for tonight.
In terms of the recruitment as a whole, and again, we talked about this on Tuesday, but you got to look at the clubs in the Premier League that are smaller or of a similar size to Wolves, that go on the data-driven models. They pick off gems from some of the Scandinavian leagues, some of the South American leagues. These players are out there. You just got to have the right people and the right tools and to be using your kit properly. And they're just not. They're just whether that's not been listened to because they're not Vera Mendes route, I don't know. But look at the players that Brentford sign. I've never heard of half of them. Look at the players that Brighton sign. I've never heard of them. Same to an extent with Bournemouth. These are signed fantastic footballers that come in. They're almost ready for the players they've sold. We are nowhere near that. And until that changes, you're never going to find those gems.
Yeah. Well, Bournemouth sold most of their defence and their goalkeeper this summer. Right? So they've sold as many players, key players, as we did. Yet they have been able to adjust to that very quickly and put it in. Get that improved and getting results. And you look at, and then again, the players are out there. You look at the players that Sunderland brought in, experienced players that knew the league or were able to gel in. And we could have signed those players. Don't tell me that Sunderland was necessarily a more attractive option than us at the beginning of the season, right? On a like-for-like basis, unless they've offered stupid money. Okay, fine. But on a like-for-like basis, we're at least in that shooting match. And the reality is we haven't approached those players. We have not looked at that model. We've not considered that.
You'd have to say, Nui, that half those Sunderland players at the forward line probably just walk into the Wolves team immediately.
100%.
To improve us. You look at Granit Xhaka, walks in, someone that can be a bit of housery, but can also score a goal and make a goal. We're a million miles up. Yeah.
Proven Premier League experience. Yeah. And that's the one thing we haven't
Bundesliga got. Winner. Yeah. Miles off it.
It's the one thing that we haven't got. But I also we were obviously talking about and I assume, Greg, we're going to get onto it because it was the next thing around the recruitment.
Yeah.
Correct. And talking about the group that there's clear thinking on signings, but potentially some were wrong. That was a bit of a weird thing. That they've got the belief in the players developing, and that the group is great. And do you know what? I genuinely hope that's true, because like I want to believe in the players, and I want to believe in Rob to be doing what he's doing, but I don't necessarily think that's true as well. And there was just a point around the self-sustaining model, and he said that Wolves have never truly been self-sustainable. However, back in the Express and Star in May 2024, this is a quote: "If a club can't find a way to be self-sufficient sooner or later, then the day its owner stops funding is literally the day it starts to prepare for administration or to be sold."
Go on, Nui.
And that self-sustaining model. So that was his quote. But then he also quoted that the self-sustaining model is a misconception from the fans.
So again, I mean, that's brilliant, Nui. You've done your homework there, and it just shows that the story's changing, the narrative's changing, which sort of corporate salad we're going to be fed this time. It's just word salad this time. It's just absolutely dreadful. Keep changing it, keep moving staff around. It's just not working. And for me, he's just fully exposed himself tonight for why people have been really upset in the first place in terms of the protests.
Yeah,
I think Jeff keeps trying to join the call, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he's trying to hijack us or filter it or something.
He's welcome on.
Yeah. Oh, well, I would have a quick few minutes with him and get some honest perspective, or not PR prepared. Now, if he is PR prepared, then they need to work on that, obviously, given what we've just talked about. But you know, I think one of the things that he talked about was at the start was he talked about the 10 years, and there was this real contradiction in terms of, at the start, we didn't mislead fans about the ambition, but then actually, as Mike called out on the interview, the initial Fosun messaging was a lot more significant than that. You know, we talked about challenge. You know, again, it was, we want to challenge the elite. There was investment in the club. There was talk about redevelopment. So they can pretend that didn't happen, but it did happen. You know, and those are facts, and those are things that happened. But now he's obviously changing the narrative that the expectations were we weren't going to compete with those top clubs, and that we were always going to go back to a level of sustainability, and this ceiling that he kept describing, which
like that's probably the bit that really infuriated me. That Wolves have got a ceiling. I mean, like in no business do you ever want to hear the chairman saying that there's a ceiling on, you know, what you. The interesting point was corporate hasn't got a ceiling.
No.
That's absolutely fine. You know, you can do whatever you want. And actually, interestingly, just to go back a couple of points on the Steve Ball stand thing, all he really spoke about in that was building more corporate boxes and stuff. It wasn't necessarily for the match going fan. It's about attracting. But the thing is, he's got a shock coming when we do get relegated, because let's be honest, it's happening. Like they keep saying, "Oh, we're never giving up." You've already given up. Like,
we'll see in January how much they're giving up when they sell 3 or 4 of our best players.
So I mean, the fact that he came out and said that the club has a ceiling, but corporate can grow, and that, you know, we were perhaps spoilt by our early success.
Well, it's just honestly, just jumping into that bit, what he said there. Well, you came in, you told us that you wanted to be bigger than Man City, and a couple of years later, as we talked about, you told us about this magnificent revamp of Molineux.
Yeah,
you talked about all these things, and now you change your mind. And like Kieran said,
apparently he was talking about corporate. He wasn't talking about the.
Yeah, of course he was. Yeah. And you say all these things, and now you literally, as Kieran said, pretending you didn't say that and trying to change the narrative. Don't treat Wolves fans like idiots, because that's what's happening at the moment.
But again, you talk about a ceiling. I mean, I went on a Palace podcast recently, right? They're a similar size club, similar size stadium, right? They've won an FA Cup. What we would give to win an FA Cup, right? Yeah. As a fan base, you know, mine best is probably the Sherpa Van Trophy. We've had some European runs, but trophy-wise, I'm discounting the Championship trophy, right? But from a cup competition, that's it.
Oh, we won the Asia. We won the Asia Trophy. It's fine.
Wasn't that my birthday?
Which we all went to, didn't we, to witness? So I think for me, it's just looking at that and going, right, you can see other clubs, right? You talk, you know, Brighton, Brentford. Look at the stadiums. Look at the size of the clubs. Look at what they're able to do. You've got the same resources available to you, Jeff, right? In terms of fan base, in terms of income. There's no excuses. There's no excuses.
What I would say as well, Greg, I think they've got a bigger opportunity because look at the companies Fosun own, the tech side of their business that they own. Why isn't that being used to help Wolverhampton Wanderers? Look at the resources you could pull from all around the road from those businesses. Look what you could do. So I'd say Fosun are even better position because they have companies they could lean on all over the world. But Jeff feels like he's doing it by himself, and he's look where we are.
Actually, do you know that last comment has just reminded me of something else that was said around the benchmarking thing. He said that 8 to 10 clubs in the Premier League are like us, with spending power not as strong. However, when it came to ticket prices last season, we were talked about benchmarking against some of the top clubs in the Premier League. So, which one is it? Like, can we compete with them or not? Like, are we just there to be a number? Because right now we're a very embarrassing number in the Premier League. I even had Americans last night taking the piss out of what's going on for us. So it's an embarrassing situation. But if you're going to talk about the other 8 to 10 clubs in the Premier League that are like us with spending power not as strong, benchmark against them. Don't benchmark against the top.
Yeah, absolutely. Greg, I have to run. Thank you so much for having me on. Nui, I'll probably speak to you again in 5 minutes' time. Let's just keep our relationship going. Cheers, guys. Up the Wolves.
Cheers. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for joining. Appreciate your thoughts.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So yeah, we'll crack on for a little bit longer, Nui, and then we'll call it a day in the next 10 or 15 or whatever.
Yeah, that's cool.
And get as many comments because the comments are going crazy tonight.
Yeah, I know.
And there's a lot of interaction. And listen, we're all here together. And we're reacting to something that is quite, let's be honest, quite inflammatory. Whether it was intended that way or not, that is the reality of where we are as a fan base. I think the problem we're seeing is a real narrative where it's kind of like, I started to think of Comic Ali. I don't know if you remember that from the Iraq War, and he's like, yeah, we're doing really well, we're winning, there's all bombs and everyone behind, and it kind of feels like that. He's like, yeah, the club's in a great place, the leadership's there, we've got a plan, we know what we're doing, but the evidence on the pitch, and let's be honest, we look at the players, and Ryan talked about it in terms of departures. You can see, that there are going to be a significant cohort of this group that are going to be actively engaged with their agents to say, get me out of here. There was a talk today about Agbadu and a Turkish club off the top of my head. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
That, again, someone talked about loans, which always makes me laugh. Why would we be loaning out first team squad players? We should only be doing that for youngsters, but that's another bugbear of mine. But you can see it. You can't be telling me that Andre, João Gomez, these guys are not onto their agents and looking at saying, right, how do I get out of this? How do I, people have got tournaments coming up. It's just making sure, we can see that happening. I don't know what your thoughts are, Nui, on that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I was going to say if anyone else wanted to join, then that would be great. I'm just in utter shock. Like, I don't know what they were expecting, what the club were expecting from this. I don't know whether they thought it would be, or I don't know whether this is just Jeff going off on his own and just going, look, I want to do this. I'm gonna go and speak to the press or to WM. I don't see any wins out of this for Wolves, no matter how you try and paint it. Like, and the other thing is, like, these, like, everything that I've spoken about tonight are, they've come from the horse's mouth. These are quotes that he said, and it's not that you can determine them in one way. Obviously, I've got opinions about everything that's said, but actually the way that these quotes kind of come across, just from like a first-hand basis, just don't seem positive to me. No. There's a lot of red flags that came up in the conversation as well. Like laughing when they spoke about Rob Edwards. Like, that's not. If I'm Rob Edwards and I'm hearing that, I'm like, why are you laughing about? Like, anyway. Yeah.
But again, like you can't. Some of the statements he's making are so bold. They're kind of arrogant, and it's kind of just completely dismissive. Well, the fans that I speak to, are good. And they're generally okay and generally positive. We've got this great manager now. Well, we'd heard that when he was talked about Lopetegui. I remember all the rhetoric when Lopetegui, he was the one we wanted to sign originally. We finally got our man. 6 months later, he's at the door. You can just see this kind of constant cycle, and it's this cycle of diminishing returns. Let's be honest. And that's not going to work. It's not going to happen. And the scariest thing is, the only way this could have worked tonight is if he turned around and I have screwed up here. Now, and this is what I'm going to do to fix it. The 10-year plan that he talked about a lot, but there was no detail behind that, right? And again, 10-year plan, from what I understand, should have a 1, 3, and 5-year plan, right? There is not. I don't believe there's a plan. What's the plan? Are you going to redevelop Monument? Wait, there's nothing there. It's we've got a strategic vision, and this is a problem, but the bigger picture's here, and we're going to work forward. And it just doesn't land. Just doesn't land.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well because he mentioned the reset after after Rob Edwards came in, that the club needs a reset and the 10-year kind of thing. But what is that reset? Like what's changed? Because all that I can see ultimately is, they've obviously got Rob Edwards in and they've allowed him to bring in some of his own backroom stuff. And I really, really hope that works for Rob, and I think in the long term that it potentially will. But like, what's the actual reset? Because you've just moved people about internally again. Like you've moved Matt Jackson to another role and I'll be honest, like I don't know Matt Jackson. Like this is the first kind of real time that he's come out and said anything, but I wouldn't necessarily suggest that he's come across great in that interview. It just felt like he was on Jeff's side with a lot of it. His door's always open and you can do this, and he's not shying away from the fans because he's at every game. So you would expect your chairman to be at every game, and you would expect him to listen to that. That's his job. To quote Roy Keane, that's his job. That's what he's there to do. But he's not actually doing anything about what the fans are singing to him.
I mean, he also talked about Go, obviously, because he's and said he watches all the games, right? He said he watches the games, whether he's here in China or whatever, he watches all the games. Yeah. You can't be telling me someone who's a hyper successful businessman, right? And he is. Let's be honest, he has riches and fortunes that all of us could only dream of, right? So he's not a stupid. For him to be sitting watching that in China, he's got to be embarrassed or he's got to be annoyed by it. Okay, it's not going to wreck his bank balance and it's not going to destroy his weekend. But that's his asset. That's his visible thing. And if Jeff's talking about it being a presence brand in China, that can't be good to watch his team getting slapped every week. And let's be honest, we are.
Yeah, and the other thing that I found like a little bit astounding was he started talking about the staff of Fosun in the offices over there and how that like he's instantly recognised wherever he goes, and people ask, like all the staff ask about Fosun, and so that's a sign that they care. I mean, within business, you're going to want to know how an arm of the business or a different leg of the business is going to be doing. That's just a normal question that you would ask as an employee of a business. Doesn't necessarily mean that they care. Like we're the ones that care. We're the ones that are putting the money in the pot for all of this. We're the ones that are paying overinflated ticket prices in a dilapidated stadium. Start listening to us. Stop. You don't need to listen to random Fosun employees. You need to listen to Guo. And like, I don't know what he's actually saying because I don't know how he's watching this, like you said, and he's happy with everything that's going on. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I think that he actually, did this interview tonight thinking, you know what, a lot of a lot of Wolverhampton and fans around the world that are listening to this are going to think, yeah, you know what, fair play for coming out. It's had the opposite effect.
Yeah.
For me, anyway. I mean, I don't want to talk on behalf of like all of the fans, but that's the general feeling that I'm getting.
Yeah. I mean, the comments on posting up are generally I'm not yet to find, and I've been deliberately trying to look at it, mate, to see if I can find a comment that says I back him. I haven't found one. There's 3,500 people on this right now, near enough, and I can't see a single one that's commented. If there is anyone and they join us and it can enlighten us, because I'm happy to be enlightened, or if there's a comment in there that's telling us what we're missing, then I'm all ears. Listen, I'm always happy to be wrong, but the evidence is overwhelming, and unfortunately, what I think, maybe this was to try and show that they're trying to engage with the fans. Obviously now the protests and that are starting to get national media interest, and that's not going to be good. So I just, it's a crazy one, and I think to be honest, as a fan base, in a weird way, we just need them we need Jeff to just shut up and get on with it, sort it out.
I don't think he's got on with it though, really, in the 10 years.
Well, that's, it's like they do talk about, we've got a plan and we've got this, that, and the other. And I'm like, and we're listening and we're learning. I'm like, but you haven't learned. This has been coming for 3 or 4. This has been 3 or 4 years in the making.
Yeah,
you've had 3 or 4 years to fix this. You've had to do a couple of rescue acts to get out of this mess, right?
I started this call today trying to be positive. And
I'm sorry, I've killed you. I've killed your positivity.
No. Do you know what? It's not you. It's absolutely not you that's made it. It's reading through these notes and seeing everything that's come out. It's just, like I said, astounding. But I guess one thing that I would say, while I've got kind of the attention of a lot of fans, is the ongoing chats that we're having as like the different fan groups. It's not obviously just OGP that are having these chats, and like the group chat is like literally busy every 15 minutes, if not more than that. Even more so since this interview's come out. So I guess what I would say is, we hear everything and we see everything that you guys are saying to us. Obviously, we're all fans, and I like to think that the majority of people have kind of seen that we want the best for the club. So we are actively looking at things to do. Just bear with us on a couple of things, because we want to make sure that we get it right, and we want to make sure that we hold the moral high ground with all of this as well.
Absolutely. As a fan base, we need to show what the values are of this club and how we behave and how we act. And we're going to do that with integrity and purpose, so we can hold our hands high. And it just shows the passion that, we've got, it's a Thursday evening, it's nearly 9:30. We've been going on for nearly an hour talking about this because it means so much to us. Yeah. Me and my son go to every game as best as we can, right? I'm going to be at Arsenal for my insanity on Saturday, right? Going down there for a late kickoff, getting back at stupid o'clock in the morning. But I do that because we love the football. We go together. It's us. Me and my lad, he's 15. We go there to support the team, and as a social thing, as a community, we are a community, and we talk, and for them to do what they're doing is really impacting, and trying to destroy that fabric, and we're not going to allow that to happen.
No, we can't allow it to happen. It's gone on for too long, and we've sat back and let it happen for too long. So it's really good to see actually fans coming together and being collective around a goal. But look, we are open to kind of feedback as well, and I've had more emails actually in the last kind of week to the OGP email just around some of the concerns that people are having, and look, we get it. We want to keep it as safe as possible. We want to keep it as on message as possible. We don't want to. We're not just going to run off down one route because there's a group of us that believe in that. Within the fan group chat, we vote on everything that we want to do, to try and get a good understanding of where we are. So it's not just scattergun approach and, looking to do what we do. We want to be as on message as we can. And it's quite clear what the message is right now. We just need to make sure that we do it properly.
Perfect. I think that's a perfect way to end this. So thank you, Nui, for that. Lovely to speak with you tonight. Thank you for joining us. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight and for all the comments. I know I got a couple of comments in there saying, can you leave them the comments on a bit longer? It was just because I was trying to get so many onto the screen today, let people see that their thoughts are being heard and to share them with the fan base. So thank you so much for that. We'll keep going, we'll keep communicating, and as you say, as a fan base, we just need to stick together and get those inputs and ideas in. Thank you everyone for tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Nui, again.
No worries. Thank you.
Insightful and really great. So thank you very much. Cheers, everyone. And last but not least, up the Wolves.
Up the Wolves.
Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?